In the hush of dawn, where the city skyline stretched like a fragile promise against the paling sky, life pulsed with unassuming rhythm. Commuters clutched steaming coffees, their footsteps echoing on rain-kissed pavements, while birds wheeled in lazy arcs overhead. Hospitals, those bastions of fragile order, hummed with the quiet cadence of charts and monitors, nurses gliding like shadows between rooms. Dr. Alex Harlan, a man worn thin by endless shifts, paused in the sterile corridor, his tablet glowing faintly in his hand. He nodded to a passing colleague, the weight of another 12-hour vigil settling into his bones like an old ache. No one could have known then, in that deceptive calm, that the air itself carried a whisper of ruin. A madness not born of bite or fever, but something insidious, seeping through the cracks of reality like ink in water. It started small, in the dim confines of exam room 7. An elderly man, Mr. Ellis, sat hunched on the edge of the bed, his gnarled hands clutching his temples as if to hold his fracturing mind intact. Veins throbbed faintly beneath translucent skin, a subtle pulse that Ellis dismissed as dehydration at first. "Tell me what you see," Alex murmured, stethoscope cold against the man's chest. But Ellis only whispered fragments, shadows dancing in his peripheral vision, voices murmuring secrets from the walls. As Alex jotted notes, a tremor rippled through the room, faint as a held breath. Outside, the nurse's station stirred, a yawn stretched into a wince, fingers rubbing at temples as if chasing invisible spiders. In the mop closet, the janitor froze mid-sweep, broom handle slipping from numb fingers, his eyes glazing over like frost on glass. The spread was silent, a fog rolling in without fanfare, turning routine into prelude. By midday, the break room offered no sanctuary. Alex poured coffee, the steam curling like a question mark, and tapped out a quick text to his sister, Lena. "Long shift, stay safe out there." Her reply buzzed back, a heart emoji, a reminder of Sunday brunch plans. He allowed himself a ghost of a smile, glancing out the window at the city awakening in honks and headlights. But peace shattered in an instant. Back in the exam room, Ellis convulsed, his body arching in jagged defiance, eyes rolling to milky whites as guttural moans clawed from his throat. Alex lunged for the alarm, red lights pulsing like infected heartbeats, corridors flooding with frantic shouts. The ER became a maelstrom. Patients lunged from gurneys, shadows with twisted limbs, staff reeling back in horror. Alex shoved a cart against the door, barricading the tide, sweat stinging his eyes as a nurse, his friend Carla, scratched at her arm, blood beating like crimson tears. Her face crumpled, pupils swallowing irises, and she turned to him with a hand outstretched, not in plea, but in hunger. Evacuation klaxons wailed silently in the chaos. Corridors a river of flailing bodies, shifting from pale blues to fevered crimsons. Alex snatched a mask, sprinting through the swarm, the hospital's doors vomiting the infected onto slick streets where rain mirrored their contortions in shattered puddles. Cars fishtailed in panic, horns a futile dirge. Below ground, subways rocked with coughs turning to foams at the mouth, veins igniting in neon fury as riders turned on each other like dominoes in a fever dream. High-rises fared no better. Office drones at glowing screens seized mid-keystroke, feral snarls ripping through cubicle walls, papers spiraling like confetti in a wake. Alex burst into the open air, weaving through shambling horrors, their gaits wrong, too fluid, too deliberate, rain lashing his face as he fumbled for his phone. Lena's line rang empty, a void that clawed deeper than any wound. News feeds flickered on shattered screens, an anchor's poised facade warping mid-sentence, eyes hollowing to voids before the broadcast cut to aerial nightmares, highways choked with ablaze hulks, cities unraveling like pulled threads. In her apartment across town, Lena clutched her young son Theo to her chest, the TV's glow casting long shadows as fists pounded at her door. The neighbor's silhouette twisted beyond the peephole, and she wedged a chair beneath the knob, lamp clutched like a talisman, her whispers to Theo, a fragile ward against the encroaching howl. Quarantine lines snaked through the streets, military silhouettes and bulky hazmats herding the desperate behind razor wire, gunfire sparking like errant stars against clawing hands. Alex, lungs burning, ducked into an alley's maw, colliding with Mia, a wiry survivor with a backpacker's grit and eyes sharpened by loss. Water bottle passed between trembling fingers, a nod sealing their pact, together or not at all. From a fire escape's precarious perch, they surveyed the pyre of their world, smoke tendrils coiling over spires, embers winking like false hopes. Distant figures scrambled in ant-like frenzy below, the wind carrying echoes of unraveling screams. A scavenged radio spat static-laced fragments. Docks, safe zone, but they're in the walls. Map unfolded on knees, roots traced in hasty ink, the duo plunged into Twilight's raid on a forsaken pharmacy. Shelves avalanched in slow cascades as hands rifled for vials and bandages, only for a pharmacist's husk to erupt from the gloom, jaws unjinging in caricature grotesquerie. Pipe met skull in a blur of motion, the crack a punctuation to their survival's grim lexicon. Huddled in the afterglow of violence, morality's blade hung poised. A child, blurred in infection's haze, whimpered from the corner. Mia's knife hovered, her gaze a storm of resolve and regret. Alex's hand shook on his own hilt, tears carving paths through grime, the choicest scar no bandage could bind.
Dawns of Exodus choked the bridges, vehicles crumpling in fiery blooms, the horde surging from underpasses like biblical floods. They threaded the wreckage on foot, the trails sting fresh when a companion snatched their pack and melted into fog, trust fracturing like glass across their vision. Torrents turned streets to veins, the infected bobbing unnaturally, arms beckoning from the deluge. Alex hauled Mia from a submerging wreck, water gauge climbing in relentless swells, their gasps the only prayer. Memories intruded like ghosts. A sun-dappled picnic, Lena's laughter mingling with Alex's, Theo's tiny hands sticky with fruit. The golden haze shattering to gray as a gunshot silhouette pierced the reverie. The docks loomed, floodlights carving beacons through murk, guards waves a siren's lure. Entry's cheer curdled as the gate buckled, the horde cascading in tidal fury. Melee engulfed the haven, axes arced in crimson parabolas, bullets stitched the night, Alex and Mia back-to-back in a ballet of desperation, bodies heaping like cordwood. Amid the fray, revelation clawed home. Alex's fingers twitched unbidden, a veins pulse mocking his resolve. In a shattered mirror's gleam, his eyes flickered, the madness blooming within, a mirror to the world's fall. As fuel drums bloomed into infernos, silhouettes blurred against the blaze, the radio's last gasp a fading spark. Dawn clawed over ruins, Alex bloodied but unbowed, horizon's edge a void pregnant with what-ifs. A child's laughter threaded the silence, too pure, too wrong, beckoning from the haze. Infection, it seemed, was no conqueror. It was evolution's cruel jest. And in its wake, humanity's remnants stood not as victors, but as the true ground zero. Forever changed, forever hungry.